Tonight on 2020 Saturday.
Please rise for our jury.
A courtroom showdown.
Who is your daughter?
My daughter is Paige Bergfeld. My daughter will always be Paige Bergfeld. Not was.
A father with a murdered daughter who lived a secret double life.
She's one more single mom out there trying to figure out a way to make ends meet without her kids suffering.
Divorced soccer mom by day, something else by night.
Did you give her reasons why you wanted her to quit?
Because she could get killed for one.
So who did it?
Does it make you nervous that we may think you did something? No. It should.
There's not a lot of people around, so...
Tonight, a 2020 investigation piecing it all together.
They're trying to find a needle in a haystack.
It was, but we found a lot of needles.
We have a major break in the murder of a Colorado mother.
The mysterious white truck the night she disappeared.
She was extremely scared.
911, where's your emergency?
Paige's burned out car.
So that dog smelled a dead body in the backseat of this car.
Smelled a dead body.
And dozens of calls from men who wanted her last night.
Yes, this is Buddy. Hey, this is Jim. My name is Bill.
With no lack of suspects.
I have lied about a lot of things to protect me.
Is the right one on trial?
Do you think he killed Paige Bergfeld?
Now the jury says it knows who killed Paige Bergfeld. Good evening, I'm Elizabeth Vargas. David is away tonight. After 9 years and 2 trials, a verdict has finally been reached in the murder of a Colorado soccer mom of 3 who led a secret double life, a life that became exposed in front of a courtroom. It is a case 2020 has been investigating since the very beginning, and tonight Ryan Smith has the very latest on this long journey to justice.
Grand Junction, the largest city on Colorado's western slope, home to these breathtaking mesas and a pleasure center for adventurers. A place where it's easy to get lost and hard to be found.
Hi, Mom. I was just wondering when you're gonna leave.
Thursday, June 28, 2007, 8-year-old Jess Dixon picks up the phone and calls her mom, Paige Bergfeld.
Hey, Mom, you are really, really mean. You said you would be back by 4:30 and you haven't even been back.
Jess is worried. It's getting late, and the 34-year-old single mother of 3 hasn't come home.
Please, please, please call someone.
By Friday morning, even more worry. Paige's father, Frank, can't reach his daughter either.
Give me a call on my cell phone. Stat by.
All of the calls going straight to voicemail.
Paige, this is Carol. What's going on? I hope you're all right.
Close friend and babysitter Carol Linderholm remembers becoming increasingly concerned.
At first I thought, well, she's probably really busy, and then I kept calling her, and there was no response.
Hey, it's Carol. Where the heck are you?
Linderholm says it was completely out of character for the hands-on mother to abandon her kids.
She always created costumes for the kids, and she taught a dance class for little toddlers. Everything was centered around the children.
So the kids were really attached to Paige.
Oh, very much so.
By Saturday, it's a full panic. A family friend walks daughter Jess, the oldest of 3, into the Mesa County Sheriff's Department to file a missing persons report. That afternoon, Frank Bergfeld gets the official word from police. His daughter has vanished.
I remember saying, this is a big problem. This is not someone who just wouldn't come home. This is a problem. There's a crime being committed here.
Frank says he doesn't waste a minute. He jumps into his car and drives 200 miles from Denver to Grand Junction. Paige's brother Craig says his father is inconsolable.
When my dad called me to tell me that Paige was missing, it's the first time I had heard him cry since I was a little kid.
Saturday evening, Frank Bergfeld finally arrives in Grand Junction.
We searched the house, we searched the property. By about 9:30, they had a bloodhound on the grounds, trying to see whether there was a trail leading away from the house.
Then, Sunday night, a disturbing development.
911, where's your emergency?
Hi, I'm at the corner of 23 and Logos, and there is a car on fire in the parking lot.
Paige's red Ford Focus is discovered on fire in a parking lot 2 miles from her home.
Do you see flames or smoke?
Yeah, there's a lot of flames. But there's nobody around that I could see.
By the time firefighters arrive, they're able to salvage little. The four-door sedan was vandalized. The fire ruled arson.
We clearly have a lot of work to do, and we don't know where Paige is at.
Cops on the scene notice something odd. The front seat on the driver's side is pushed all the way back. So they ask one of their own, a woman Paige's height, to try and touch the pedals. When she can't, they realize someone else must have been driving. Plus, there's this, Paige's daily planner. It survives the blaze, almost laminated by the plastic melted over it, keeping it intact. But when police take a closer look, someone has ripped out 4 days of pages.
They found the dates 26, 27, 28, 29 had been torn out. That tells me somebody thought those pages were incriminating.
Suddenly, the missing persons case is beginning to look more like a kidnapping.
This isn't a situation where Paige left on her own volition.
Frank Bergfeld goes to the crime scene, and the reality begins to sink in.
You know, it occurred to me I hadn't cried in a long time. I've learned how to do that. That's it.
The family prays, waits, and worries. But Paige's mom, Susie, never gives up hope.
I hope that she's safe. We want her to come home for our children and her family.
She wonders who would want to hurt her daughter. The stunning young woman with the long strawberry blonde hair, just 34 years old.
She'd enter a room and people turn heads.
Tell me about the time you first met.
I drove up to her house, knocked on the door, and she opened the door, and I said, "Oh my gosh." I said, "You're so beautiful." And she says, so sweetly, "I haven't been told that in so long."
But Linderholm soon learns there's trouble lurking behind Paige's facade. The soccer mom with the model looks is twice divorced. She's struggling emotionally and financially after her second marriage crumbles.
Paige had definitely fallen on hard times.
Journalist Carol McKinley is following the case for 2020.
She's suddenly broke, but she's used to living the high life. Her friends have told us that her ex-husband wasn't helping at all with all those bills.
Things happened, they got divorced. She ended up with the house, and that was her home.
But this was no ordinary home.
At one point, Paige is paying a staggering $6,000 a month for that $1 million home.
So Paige starts taking odd jobs to pay her mounting bills.
All these crazy jobs. She's selling cooking products for a company called Pampered Chef. She's selling baby slings. She's even teaching children dance classes.
And suddenly, her 3 small children have no idea if they'll ever see Mom alive again. As soon as Paige's car is discovered abandoned in that parking lot, the search parties assemble.
Hi, are you here to write?
Back in 2007, 2020 accompanied Frank and more than 200 volunteers flanked out in fields just south of Grand Junction, looking for any sign of Paige in the scorching Colorado heat. Connie Fluke led those initial searches back in 2007.
How many people would be out here?
We had anywhere from 150 to 220 a day.
Wow, so 150 to 220 people a day walking these mountains and these hills looking for Paige. Anything they could find.
Yes.
When we come back, Frank Bergfeld expands his search, desperate for any clue that might lead to his daughter's recovery.
She's out there somewhere, and I can't protect her.
While investigators begin to wonder if Paige's complicated love life with 2 ex-husbands has something to do with her disappearance.
Where's your emergency? My husband and I were in a fight.
See what happens next.
"2020 Saturday" continues with Soccer Mom by day.
I mean, this is big country here.
24 days after Paige Bergfeld vanishes without a trace,
Look along the bank, look in the middle, look at a snag.
her father, Frank, moves his search to this vast canvas, the winding Colorado River.
I don't know. I don't know when you give up. I don't know. When do you say she's gone? I don't know.
Weeks turn into months as investigators and volunteer searchers paddle through murky waters and trudge through desert scrub brush. But Connie Fluke says there is no sign of Paige.
How daunting was this search?
This was one of the hardest searches that I personally have been on.
Like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
It was, but we found a lot of needles.
But perhaps the biggest clue came from the unlikeliest of sources. A motorist with a flat tire pulls along the side of this road to fix it and then notices something strange. Page's checkbook. Investigators soon find Page's personal checks and business cards, other personal items dropped all along this road. How important was that trail of breadcrumbs left along Highway 50 for your search?
I think it was very important for the case, and I think it was very important for the family too, just to know, yes, she was brought to that area.
But who abducted Paige Bergfeld? When a divorced mother goes missing, it's only a matter of time before the police zero in on the ex. In Paige's case, she had two, starting with Ron Beigler. Journalist Carol McKinley says the two were teenage sweethearts.
Paige did have big dreams out of high school. She went to Florida to go to school, wanted to be a midwife, but Ron Beigler followed her out there. Her grades start failing and she drops out.
Ron and Paige move back to Colorado. They have a huge wedding set on a peak overlooking the Denver skyline. But their youthful rush to the altar ends as quickly as it starts.
Early on, Paige made it very clear to Ron she wanted children. She adored children, but Ron wanted no part of that. It turned out to be a deal breaker. Her friends say she got a divorce after just 2 years.
In the wake of that divorce, she meets Rob Dixon, an emergency medical technician who friends say didn't really need to work because he came from a wealthy family.
Her in-laws, the Dixons, were loaded. They made a fortune getting in on early technology with cell phones.
That family fortune lined their son Rob's pockets for years.
He loved spending his daddy's money. He had 6 sports cars.
In a town full of pickup trucks, Rob Dixon is driving a bright yellow Ferrari.
That definitely got everyone's attention. She was being showered with gifts. There were bracelets, a $12,000 necklace.
Rob pops the question with an $85,000 engagement ring. The newlyweds start a family right away. First, there's daughter Jess, followed by 2 adorable boys, Taft and Trigger.
6.5, and my big sister is 8.5, and my baby brother is 3.5.
They appear to be the perfect family. They've got these beautiful children, expensive home. They're living a champagne life in really what's a 6-pack town. Everything's going well, but then the bottom falls out.
Paige's dad says Dixon makes a series of bad investments, and those bad investments lead to some bad blood.
I think as Rob's wealth kind of toppled, I think he became under more and more pressure, and it bled out into the relationship.
Then, one night in 2004, this.
Where's your emergency? My husband and I were in a fight, and he was supposed to watch my children while I went to work, and he said that I would come home and find them all murdered.
No charges were filed against Dixon that year, but 12 months later, he is charged with assault, slapping and punching Paige. Later that year, the couple divorce.
She had some scary times, but she got out of them.
Paige's friends Barbara Campbell, Rena Stockmeyer, and Andrea Land spoke to 2020's John Quinones in 2007.
Lately, she was very concerned about him being around the kids. She had a lot of worry that it wasn't a healthy situation.
Then, in March of 2007, Paige writes this bone-chilling blog. My children would ask me if Dad was going to kill me. I can't imagine what life would be like for them after he killed me.
The first person you thought might have done this?
Rob was the first person that came to mind.
My immediate thought, honestly, was Rob Dixon.
To investigators, that all sounds like Homicide 101, a roadmap leading right to Rob Dixon. Except Dixon has an airtight alibi the night Paige disappears. His cell phone records indicate he's 2,000 miles away at his new home in Philadelphia the night Paige goes missing.
It quickly scratches Dixon off the list. He's effectively alibied because he's on the East Coast. But then investigators turn their eyes on Paige's first ex-husband, who lives 4 hours away in Aurora, Colorado.
And here's why. It turns out that Paige had rekindled her romance with her first love, Ron Beigler, and was with him just hours before she vanishes, having a picnic at this park in Eagle, Colorado.
It wasn't anything that out of the ordinary or special. I mean, we just decided to meet that day. The Eagle is halfway point for both of us. So we left at the same time and arrived back in our towns at approximately the same time, and she called me to make sure I made it back into Denver, and that's the last I ever heard of her.
But you could talk about a missing person emergency.
2 days later, Biegler calls 911 to report his ex-wife missing.
Definitely missing because she would never leave her children.
Her first husband, Ron, she was with him that day. She leaves him. He's the last person to see her. But he was ruled out pretty quickly.
Pretty effectively alibied by cell phone evidence, etc.
Former District Attorney Pete Hotzinger says, like Dixon, Biegler has an alibi too. Cell phone records place Biegler 4 hours away in Denver the night Paige disappears, making it impossible for him to be in Grand Junction. So if it wasn't either of Paige's exes, who might have had it in for Paige?
A major complication in the case was the fact that there's such a large number of alternative suspects who have to be eliminated by virtue of what she did for a living.
When we come back, the secret life of the soccer mom exposed.
Was it just massages? Was it something more?
The babysitter's revelation about why Paige Bergfeld may have been in harm's way with dozens of men.
It was after hours, and as she was getting ready to leave, she sees this truck pull up. She's wanted out of there. She was extremely scared.
See what happens next.
2020 Saturday continues with Soccer Mom by day.
Nightfall in Grand Junction. As shadows grow long beneath the cliffs of the Western Rockies, secrets have easy hiding places. Friend and part-time babysitter Carol Linderholm recalls the night when 34-year-old Paige Bergfeld had a date with danger.
She had a call to meet somebody at her office. The building was closed. It was after hours. She'd see this white truck. She eventually closed her office, went downstairs to her car, and as she was getting ready to leave, she sees this truck pull up and she just wanted out of there. The white pickup took off.
Was she shaken by this?
Oh, she was extremely scared. She told me about it and she says, I've never been so scared in my life.
In the light of day, Paige's office, where she was selling Pampered Chef cookware, was located in this nondescript cluster of commercial office spaces. But after hours, Paige reveals to only a few close friends it was also a front for a pampering of a much different brand, a side business she was running named Models, Inc.
What did she do?
Bachelor parties.
Paige's double identity is still a touchy subject for those with whom she shared this dirty little secret, as we found when talking to some of them in 2007.
She was learning to give massages. You know, lots of people give massages. So I knew that she was doing a little extra on the side, but it fit perfectly.
The little extra was that Paige, for the right price, would perform those massages topless. Surprisingly, even her ex Ron Biegler knew and seemed to give it a rubber stamp.
Average call was $450. There was no sexual touching, no sexual contact, no intercourse, you know, that kind of thing. She charged more for each little thing that came off.
In fact, she had this ad in the local paper, calling herself Carrie, and even posting a picture on a website called Naughty Nightlife. Former District Attorney Pete Hotzinger put it this way.
You know, I can't really say I ever knew exactly what specific services she was running. It was clearly an adult escort service. It was clearly highly unusual for Western Colorado.
In her profile, Paige seems pretty adept at double entendre, boasting, tired of chopped meat showing up when you ordered filet mignon?
She didn't tell you about this other life she was leading.
2020's John Quinones first spoke to Paige's family in 2007.
I think she realized that we would not approve. And actually, now that I know about it, I think she was trying to keep the house and the kids together.
It's not exactly something a brother likes to hear his little sister's doing. I'm continually having to talk about things that if I heard people talking about them in the locker room after a football game, I'd beat the crap out of the guys. But it's part of her life, and like it or not, that's the way she chose to provide for her kids.
Paige's former roommate, Jamie Silvernail, says that was the only conceivable reason the otherwise wholesome single mom of three would moonlight as a sexy masseuse.
She felt like it's something she needed to do to be able to keep a roof over their head and put food on the table.
She needed the money.
Yeah. She's one more single mom out there trying to figure out a way to make ends meet without her kids suffering.
It wasn't until after Paige's disappearance that the shocking news of her side business came to light. When it did, it spread like wildfire across a dry Colorado mesa.
Investigators say she was a mom who led a secret double life,
running her own escort service.
Paige now had the proverbial scarlet letter on her chest.
When it came out that she ran an escort service, it dwindled down to practically nothing. Nobody cared anymore because she was that sort of woman.
But investigators care, and they learn the night Paige Bergfeld disappears, she receives dozens of calls from men seeking her services.
Yes, this is Buddy. I was wondering if you had any girls available this afternoon.
Hey, this is Jim. I'm going to go get me a motel room now.
Hello, my name is Bill. Just calling to see if anybody's still available for the night.
Major complication in the case was the fact that there's such a large number of alternative suspects.
Which brings us back to that office parking lot, the spot where Paige ran Models Inc. And a burning question. Who was that man in the white truck who frightened Paige Bergfeld that night?
What are you driving right now?
White Dodge pickup.
What?
Police have a sneaking suspicion, but is this the right man? When we come back, big breaks in the case. A confrontation.
Banged on that door. I said, I know what you did to Paige.
A discovery in a canyon.
Many searchers had been up that gulch, right in that area.
But will it lead to a confession?
I did not kill her.
Next.
"2020 Saturday" continues with Soccer Mom by day.
Mesa County, Colorado. Investigators looking into the disappearance of Paige Bergfeld have little to go on. All that's come to light is a burned-out Ford Focus, a monthly planner with missing pages, and the clues strewn like breadcrumbs along a desolate Colorado highway. The Escort missing mom, who called herself Carrie, had dozens of clients. And now, one of them is called in for questioning.
You are, Mr. Johnson, right?
Jones.
Jones, gosh, you know what? That's funny, sorry about that, okay.
He's 55-year-old Lester Jones, a local RV mechanic who's married with a rap sheet as long as a Winnebago.
I'm guessing you can probably guess as to what we're investigating.
He just said he's investigating the disappearance of the young lady.
Okay.
Without a lawyer present, homicide detective Lisa Norcross questions Jones about the proximity of the garage where he works and the spot where Paige's scorched sedan is recovered.
Does it make you nervous that we may think you did something?
No.
It should. Okay? It should.
Turns out, Paige and Jones had once been much closer. Investigators discover Jones had hired her for a pricey $400 erotic massage a year earlier.
And what are you wearing?
I had nothing on.
Okay, and her?
She had nothing on.
Okay.
We did not have sex.
Okay.
She tells me up front she doesn't do sex.
Okay.
But then they find out Jones is one of several men feverishly calling Paige in the days before she disappears.
Lester Jones was calling and calling her.
Carol Linderholm tells investigators Jones made another appointment with Paige the day before she went missing. This time, Paige is worried that Jones has figured out her true identity. So she sends Carol on the call instead.
What's your first impression when you walked in the door?
Fear.
Really?
Yeah. He's a very large, overpowering person.
What's the first thing he said to you?
I want sex. I looked at him and I said, then you should probably call another escort service because it's not going to happen with me. That's not what I'm here for.
No sex, but lots of talk. And the topic? Paige Bergfeld. Carol says he seems obsessed with Paige. And sure enough, he tells her he recognizes Paige as the once wealthy wife of Rob Dixon.
You knew when you saw her the first time that she was Rob Dixon's ex-wife?
Yeah, I knew that.
Okay.
During 2.5 hours of questioning, Jones cooperates fully, letting them take his fingerprints, giving them his DNA, and handing over the keys to his truck.
What are you driving right now?
It's a white Dodge pickup.
White.
A white pickup. Could it be the same white pickup that frightened Paige that night outside her office? The no-nonsense Detective Norcross puts the screws to the RV mechanic.
Do you know where she is? Do you know what happened to her? Now I have to be convinced of that.
I can't convince you of it. I don't know what happened to her. I don't.
Before she disappeared, Paige had gotten 5 calls from a mystery man calling from a disposable track phone. Jones denies it was him. He tells investigators he doesn't even own a track phone.
Did you buy a track phone?
No, sir.
Never bought a track phone?
Never.
Cops search his home and scour the mechanic's workspace at the RV shop in Grand Junction. They find Viagra, condoms, a black Victoria's Secret bra, and under his desk, a gasoline can.
Now you may think, well, maybe he used the gas can. It's RV repair. Maybe they had a gas can. No. Police questioned the owners and co-workers, and there was no reason for him to have a gas can at his workspace. Do you have a gas can at your workspace? Because I don't.
But the most compelling evidence? In the trash, packaging for a disposable track phone, just like the one Jones swears he doesn't own. ABC News chief legal analyst Dan Abrams.
Lester Jones is claiming, I didn't have a track phone. I don't know what you're talking about. Not only is there a track phone box found in his office, but there's a video.
Investigators track that disposable phone to this Walmart. Security cameras pick up a man that looks a lot like Lester Jones purchasing it.
I didn't buy no track phone at Walmart, too.
On video, buying a track phone at Walmart.
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
The fact that he appears to have lied about it makes it that much more incriminating.
Desperate for more direct evidence, detectives fly in trained dogs to search Paige's burned-out car.
This is Paige's car.
Canine handler Julie Jones shows us how she says they found the scent of death.
So that dog smelled a dead body in the backseat of this car?
Smelled a dead body in the back of the car. That's correct.
A dead body in the back seat. And in the front seat, the one pushed way back, the handler says the smell of a man.
Who else did the dog find in this car?
He was given the scent of Lester Jones, and he found the scent of Lester Jones in the driver's seat of this vehicle.
6'4", 275-pound Lester Jones. But many questioned the science of dog scent evidence.
Problem with the dog. You can't cross-examine him.
And the rest of the case against Jones is circumstantial. Without Paige's body, former district attorney Pete Hotzinger is reluctant to press charges.
We were all sure she was dead. We were sure she was murdered, but I was unwilling to file charges until I actually had a body.
The case went cold until an afternoon in March of 2012. A hiker hiking not far from the highway, just a short distance from where Paige's personal items were found, made an astonishing discovery. Down in this gulch in a dry stream bed, amid all of these rocks and weeds and brush, were human remains. Daughter that Frank and Susie had been searching for 5 long years.
There's no soft tissue left. All she is a skeleton.
Unfortunately, the years have hidden the cause of her death. One clue that it was violent: duct tape wrapped around the skull.
Sheriff's office arrested Lester Jones this morning in connection to Paige Bergfeld's death.
When you're talking about a case that's almost a decade old, with a body that wasn't found for about 5 years, you've got immediate challenges as the prosecution.
Please be seated. Next, the trial of Lester Jones, the man charged with Paige Bergfeld's murder, and the men defense attorneys say should be.
So let me talk to you about a few of the real killers in this case.
I have lied about a lot of things to protect me. I would have put her in a wood chipper.
Yeah, this is John at Motel 6, room 237. I was just checking to see if you had somebody coming out or not.
Is that your voice, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Does 10:24 p.m. sound right to you? That's the time you made that call?
Yeah. See what happens next.
"2020 Saturday" continues with Soccer Mom by day.
Getting to the Mesa County Justice Center is easy. Go to Grand Junction, can't miss it. But getting justice for murdered soccer mom Paige Bergfeld, much harder. It has taken nearly a decade. Last summer, her alleged killer was hauled into court. There he is, Lester Jones.
Today, a man accused of murdering a single mother is set to stand trial in Grand Junction.
Lester Jones, he's the man charged with kidnapping and murdering Paige Bergfeld,
whose remains were eventually found in Delta County.
But even former District Attorney Pete Hotzinger concedes Jones will be a hard man to convict.
At some point, I'd like to think the jury's going to say it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck.
Man, it's like a dagger.
For 3 weeks, the witness chair gets a workout. The prosecution calling 80 people to the stand, investigators and experts, dentists and former call girls, hikers and dog handlers.
What was your understanding of where he was?
The prosecution's theory? Sometime after 8:57 p.m., the time of the last known call from her cell phone, Jones kidnaps and kills Paige, then uses her own car to dispose of her body in that gulch down Highway 50. A few nights later, telling his wife he has to go out.
Where did he say he was going?
Back to the shop. He thought he had left the lights on that morning and wanted to get them turned off.
Investigators believe instead he takes that opportunity to burn Paige's car, incinerating any evidence of his crime. In his police interview, Jones himself conceding things don't look good.
Her car is found next to work. I have no alibi for Sunday night when the car caught on fire. I have no alibi for the whole week. And I called multiple times.
Prosecutors closed their case with a star witness, Jones's ex-wife, Lisa Nance.
He said, "I'm going to kill you." And then he just slapped me repeatedly, and I could taste blood. I grabbed his hand and I asked him to stop.
Nance says in the late 90s, when their marriage was ending, Jones kidnapped her at gunpoint and threatened to kill her.
He told me he was going to put me in the bottom of the lake where no one would find me.
She escaped, and Jones served 5 years in prison. But then Lester Jones's defense attorneys get their turn. They argue Jones is the wrong man and proceed to present a parade of alternate suspects. There's John Livingston.
I did call some services back then, and dumb, but I did.
A ranch hand waiting for Paige at Motel 6 the night she disappeared.
Yeah, this is John at Motel 6, room 237. I was just checking to see if you had somebody coming out or not.
Okay, so you were calling a company called Models Inc. that day on June 28th.
Right.
He says she never showed up.
Do you have anything to do with the disappearance of Paige Bergfeld?
No.
Have anything to do with the murder of Paige Bergfeld?
No.
Then there's Wayne D'Amico, a car salesman and another of Paige's clients.
Did you know Paige Bergfeld?
I did. At some point, we set up a time and we hung out together on a professional basis.
Did you pay her money?
Yes, ma'am.
He admits he joked about disposing of her body.
Had I had something to do with it, and that's what I said, I would have put her in a wood chipper. Believe me, if I could turn that page back right now, it would be turned back.
But the woman who heard him say it, a former call girl, Christy Steves, was worried enough to call the police.
I believed him to my core. I typically have a good intuition. I was under the influence of drugs, so I'm not saying, but I believed him. I really did.
Did it scare you?
Yeah.
If anyone had motive, defense attorneys say it was Stephen Heald.
There's absolutely no reason for me to want her dead.
The construction manager who embezzled $17,000 of his company's money, supposedly buying Pampered Chef products from Paige.
She created an invoice. I paid that invoice. The invoice would say Pampered Chef or some other type of work, but it was for sex.
Heald first tells detectives Paige was blackmailing him to hide their relationship, but then changes his story.
That's the dumbest thing I ever said. She never blackmailed me. Our relationship was mutual.
But Heald has an alibi for the night Paige disappeared. His ex-wife says for once he was where he belonged, at home with her.
You have every reason to basically throw him under the bus, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Okay. And despite that...
And I would have.
But if anyone might give this jury reasonable doubt, defense attorneys say it is this man, another client, George Coraluzzo, a painter with a colorful past. Theft, burglary, DUI, and kidnapping. Phone records show in the hours before Paige goes missing, Coraluzzo is robo-dialing her, something like 20 times, trying to set up a massage date.
It boiled down to Lester Jones or Coraluzzo, and I was the stick in the mud, frankly, saying, yeah, I think we have a case against Lester Jones, but I'm not convinced that we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt until Coraluzzo has been effectively eliminated.
2 days after Paige disappears, an acquaintance of George Coraluzzo, Megan Williams, says he came to her in a panic, claiming he had to leave town in a hurry because his family had been killed in a car crash, which was a lie.
Was he acting like someone who did something very bad and was trying to get away?
He was emotional. He was sad. He was frantic. He was just like, you know, I gotta do things. I gotta go. I can't be here.
Do you think he killed Paige Bergfeld?
I do think he killed Paige Bergfeld. And I have stuck with that since day one.
But prosecutors say Coraluzzo was thoroughly investigated and eliminated as the killer. Coraluzzo can't testify because he drowned in a New Jersey river in 2011. Which brings us back to the case against Lester Jones and two final bizarre pieces of the puzzle. Soon after police interrogated him, Jones attempts suicide with an overdose of sleeping pills. Coincidentally, he gets a call from detectives soon after. They're simply trying to arrange the return of his now notorious white pickup.
Mr. Jones? Yes, sir. This is Art Smith with the Sheriff's Office.
But a groggy Jones makes a bizarre statement.
He asked me where I would bury a body. I'm sorry? You asked me where I could bury a body. When did I ask you that?
Does that sound like some sort of accidental confession? What will the jury make of it?
Please rise for our jury.
When we come back, a courtroom stunner. The bombshell dropped in court.
"2020 Saturday" continues with Soccer Mom by day.
Frank and Susie Bergfeld spent most of last summer here at the Mesa County Courthouse to bear witness to the prosecution of Lester Jones. He's the man they believed murdered their daughter Paige back in 2007.
It's been 9 long years for you to get to this place, that courthouse right there.
Man, you know what? It's like we're on a merry-go-round, except the merry-go-round doesn't stop.
The prosecution's closing argument, reminding the jury of that young mother, kidnapped, thrown in the back of her own car, taken off to be murdered.
Paige must have been so scared. It is hard to even imagine what would have been going through her head as she was laying either in the back of the vehicle or in the trunk.
When it's their turn, attorneys for Lester Jones say there was a virus in the investigation.
They screwed up this investigation from the get-go. Let's talk about who's the real killer.
The judge sends the 12 jurors, 9 men and 3 women, off to deliberate.
It's not an easy case, it's not a simple case, and just one juror could derail a conviction for prosecutors.
And sure enough, the case that confounded the nation for almost a decade stymied this jury too.